Hi again, friends. Welcome back to another Allan Holdsworth lesson video. Today we are going to be doing 3 Sheets to the Wind, as I had mentioned in my previous video, and hopefully I'll do a better job than I did with Texas. This song is not easy. To understand it, I don't think it's really too bad. There's a lot of things that repeat the same way. Even the solo section borrows a lot from earlier parts of the song, but the some of the stretches and some of the actual fingerings in here are really tough. So I would actually say that this is top 10 tougher Allan songs. It's not impossible, but I have a very difficult time playing some of these. If you have longer fingers, especially longer than mine, I'm only 5'6", my hands aren't really very big, but it's the technique that's important. If you have longer fingers, this song probably won't be too much of an issue for you, but I actually struggle with a few of the weirder things in the song. So, because it's named 3 Sheets to the Wind, there's a lot of really weird chords, and I think this is going to be another song where some of the chord names that I give for some of these voicings will probably be up for debate. I usually try to go with the chord that makes the most sense by its name, by the notes that are inside of it, not necessarily what the root is. And there's a lot of voice leading in this song, so it doesn't really follow too much of a harmonic structure. It's a lot of voice leading, moving a note up a half step, moving an entire half of the chord down a half step, stuff like that. So anyway, let's get started. So the beginning of this song has a little intro section that appears nowhere else in the rest of the song. It has a very stumbling, sort of drunken feel, which definitely gives the nature of the name of the song, 3 Sheets to the Wind. And Allan certainly liked his alcohol, so it makes perfect sense that this song has that kind of wobbly, disoriented kind of feeling, especially with some of the chords. So the first chord of the song, I would call this an A flat minor add 9. It's a little weird. This voicing, at least the way that your hand is very similar to other chords, like the looking glass chord. It's very similar in that kind of shape, so getting the spread between the second and third fingers can be really tricky. One of the things that I had noticed when I myself have been playing this, I could never play those looking glass chords. The trick is really sideways. The more you can sort of make your hand sideways, the more you can fan your fingers out a little bit. So I would suggest, if you have trouble with this, try to play the chord almost sideways, instead of trying to play it straight up like this and trying to stretch out. Play a little sideways. So the first chord is an A flat minor add 9. So we're being on the E string, and that's going to be the root for all the rest of these chords. The next one being E augmented add 9. We have an E augmented triad here, E, C, and G sharp. And then we have our F sharp, our 9. That slides down to D flat minor add 9, the same voicing as the first chord. And then finally, this is a very weird instance where Allan actually uses an open string. Typically he would fret all the notes if he can, but in this case, because I believe the way that the chord is voiced, it might be a little trickier to play it. But this is an A flat 7 sharp 9. This voicing, or at least interval structure I should say, comes up later in the song, but it's actually played different. That's the intro of the song. Whoops, let me try that again. There we go. As I said, this song is pretty tricky for me. So now the next part is the actual head of the song. If you looked in or watched my video for 54 Duncan Terrace, I started to talk about Allan's voicings for major and minor chords. These sort of spread open voicings. And I mentioned this song, and this is exactly what happens here. The beginning of the song is actually a lot of simple major and minor chords. The problem is how their voice is very tricky. So the first chord is actually E major. You have an E, G sharp, and a B. And then you take your first finger and your third finger and you sort of move them in contrary motion, and then you have a C major. And then you use your little pinky to play the G on the top. And then that chord, this C major chord, gets moved down to A major. So we got this. That's how it's actually played. played with these three notes, and then the G sharp afterwards. Then a B flat major voiced like this. And then it goes to a C, this kind of weird thing. This actually is an F major add 9. It doesn't seem like it, but you can get that, that same harmonic feeling from the bass and also from the solo section. So this little weird part is a C, G, and A, and I believe this is how Allan's playing it with this spread, because something like this happens later in the song, but with a little variation of it. So now after that, D flat major, then you add the major 7 with your pinky, the C here, B flat major, A flat major, B major, B major 7, and then F sharp major. And now I don't really hear this on the record version, but I can hear it on the I can see Allan playing this. He moves his second and third finger down like this, making a D flat major. The bass is definitely playing an A flat there, but it's really hard to tell if that's what the guitar is doing as well. Now after that, after this chord, it moves right up to D major. Then he plays another kind of D major weird thingy like this. Oops. Where he's actually playing D, A, and an E, hammering on the F sharp, pulling it off, and then playing a D with his first finger there. This is really not a D in the solo section. This is actually treated as E major add 9 with the D, so sort of an E dominant kind of sound, but for this part here it sounds like D major. And then this weird section. We have an E flat minor triad with the 11 on the bottom. So an E flat minor add 11. Then this chord, which I actually would consider as built from an A major add 9 chord, and using your first finger instead of playing the root to play the sharp 11. So I would consider this an A major add 9 add sharp 11, and then you move that voicing all the way down here to E. So we got this. That's, for whatever reason, really tricky for me to play. Part of the key is your first and third finger are really on the same strings, and it's just your second and fourth finger that have to move. Now from there, it repeats again from the beginning, from E. Whoops. At this point, instead of going to F sharp major, you go to D major. You sort of skip a couple of sections, or skip a couple of measures. Back to that little D major thing again. Then here's the weirdest part of the song, where a lot of the weird stretching comes in. It starts off with the same chord with that E flat minor add 11, but now you play this chord instead, which is almost like playing that A major add 9 add sharp 11, but you're swapping the strings that your second and fourth finger are on, and you play this E flat minor 7 flat 5. You have your 1, your flat 7, your 5, right? I'm sorry, 5 there, and then your flat 3. And then you use that same interval stack, but you play a major 7, a D flat major 7. So we've got this so far. And now you take your second and fourth finger and move them down a half step, so instead of playing the 13th and 15th fret, they're now playing the 12th and the 14th fret. So now you have this chord, which I would consider a D flat minor major 7 sharp 11 chord. Then your first finger moves up a half step. I don't know if really this chord is ringing out on top of it, but if it is, and you hear it like that, it's really a C major 9, C major triad here with the 9 on top. Now this really tricky chord, which is a B minor major 7, B minor major 11. Here's your minor third, and here's your 11, E, and then you move your pinky up a half step, and now it becomes a B major 11. 1, major 7, 11, and your major third. That's, I think, the best way to call it. Then, an A major and 9, same sort of ideas up here when you moved your first finger up to from D flat to C. D flat to E, sorry. So, A major add 9. Then you move this A major triad up a whole step. And then you have that weird B minor major 7 sharp 11 chord. Then you move the F and the D up a half step. So now instead of them being the minor third and the sharp 11 to the 5 and the major third, and you have a B major 7. Really tricky. I'll try to do that slowly, that whole section. Really tricky with a lot of voice leading stuff. So that's the intro part, and then it's going to go to the second part that has an A pedal throughout the entire chord section. That also appears in the solo. So let's do that now. Alright, so aside from the section before, this is really the only other section of the song. Everything else is some sort of variation of what came before it. In this section, the lowest note is A. Which, once again, to me, doesn't always mean that that's the bass or the actual root of this, but I believe the way that Alan's thinking about this is everything based around A and playing with the different scales that has A in it. Also, I apologize if I look a little sweaty. It's incredibly hot in my room, and I turned the fan off so you guys can hear me clearly. So, the first chord is this. So, this is an A major 9, sharp 11. So we have the 9 here and the sharp 11 with the A major 7. And then it moves to A minor 11. And then he moves up a half step, but switches the orientation of the top two strings. So now you have a major 7 and a 13 here, making this A major 13. Then you take this whole chord and move it down here, basically a whole step to F sharp. So now you have an F sharp minor 11. Once again, A not being the root, but the reason why this sounds like F sharp minor 11 to me is because the chord that follows it, this sounds like an F major 9 to me, that being the major 7. And then this chord here, basically like taking an A major chord and then moving it up a half step, is a B flat major 7 sharp 11. So it's a third inversion B flat major 7 with the sharp 11 on the top. And then this little part, where you're basically playing like a C sus2 chord and letting the open E ringing out and moving that down to B sus2. But the way that these two chords kind of sound, this is like a major 7 sharp 11. So that's your major 7, and then E flat or D sharp being your sharp 11. And then when you move this chord down a whole step, sorry, you get what probably makes more sense as an A 6 over 9, with the 6 and the 9 here, 6, 9, and then the major third and the 5th. Or you can think of this also as a F sharp minor 11. But I think in this case that A 6 over 9 makes more sense. And then that repeats again. I'll play it slowly now. And there you go. Then from there we go to the solo section, which is the two parts that we just did sort of combined, and of course, as there's typical of Allan, there's always a little bit of variation somewhere in there. We're in the home stretch. After this comes the outro, which is very similar to the previous section, and we're done. So, as I said, it's relatively simple, but some of the voicings are really tricky. So, anyway, no more talking. Let's do the song. in the solo section, it's pretty much the same as like an abridged version of the main head of the song, and then that other swirly part that we just did with A as the bass. But of course, there's always a little bit of twists and turns, and there's a part in here that really sort of threw me for a loop. One of the things that made this song really hard to kind of figure out is that there is not a lot of live video of it. The recording is also very good, but in terms of trying to figure it out, especially what's going on underneath the solo, it's not very good. So most of this I took from the 86 version of this song that you can find on YouTube. I also had found some other live versions that I try to really listen to closely to get the best idea of what's going on. So this is the best that I got. I'm gonna talk about it in a way that I think makes the most sense, and if it's not 100% perfect, it's because I'm probably showing you more than what Allan's playing. It's tough to tell if the bass and the guitar are really doing two different things, or the bass is playing the lowest note that the guitar is also playing. It's tough to tell. So anyway, the beginning of the solo is really like an abridged version of the intro part that we just did, just sort of truncated. So instead of the whole that kind of thing, they're basically all major Ed 9 chords. They're built from this shape, this E major with the added 9, but now instead of playing the full chord, Allan's just really playing the middle 3 notes. So no actual note in here is the root of the chord, but that's what the vibe of the song, the harmony of the song really is. The bass is kind of playing the E, and Allan's just playing the upper structures or some of the color tones between it. So this follows just like the intro section. I keep on calling it the intro section. It's really not the intro section. I guess it's the head. But to me, I always forget that the beginning of the song actually exists. I always think of this part as the intro for whatever reason. Anyway, the first chord is E major add 9 to C major add 9, A flat major add 9 to B flat major add 9, and then F major add 9. And also you can use a sus4 there. Then after that, D flat major 9 to A flat major add 9. So now a B major add 9. You can also add in the sharp 11. I think I heard somewhere Allan sometimes does this, adding in the sharp 11, but you could play this. B major add 9 to F sharp major add 9. Then a D major add 9. So now we're at the part that goes, whoops, that little section. So Allan plays the D major add 9, and then it sounds like he actually plays an E major add 9, but voiced like this. So you have E, G sharp, and a B, but now you have an F sharp there, which is a neat little way of doing it. So this is the end of the first repeat. Allan plays an A major triad, and then you move the root down a half step, so now it's actually a third inversion major 7. Then to G major. And this one's tricky. I hear Jimmy Johnson moving his first finger down and also playing it the same way as the major 7 in third inversion, like this. It doesn't really sound right on guitar, but I definitely hear this on top, and sometimes I hear Allan even just playing F sharp minor. Once again, when we're talking about these solo sections, Allan, when he's playing the chords, does not think of the voicing itself, but thinks of the scale that it's relating to. And in this instance, he's probably thinking D major, D major through this whole thing, not necessarily specific to the voicing. Doing something like that. So that's the first repeat. I'll play that again. Then it repeats the same exact way. Now comes the part I was saying that I had real difficulty trying to figure out. I'm not exactly sure if these chords are 100% right, but they sound right. If they're wrong, I'm going to guess that the lowest note Allan isn't playing here. So adding that in will at least make the chord sound more fuller, but I'm not 100% sure if he's just doing that or he's playing actually just simple triads, and the bass is actually creating, playing a different note, so it sounds like Allan's actually playing upper extensions and not the full chord. The first chord sounds like E flat minor 7, then a B flat major add 9, but in first inversion. Then a D flat major add 9, then A major add 9, C major add 9, and this chord, it was tough to really hear. I think he's just thinking of B minor. I've heard him play on one live version, B minor add 9. He also can be playing just a regular B minor 7. Then the next chord after that is E flat minor 11. Once again, you can play anything in the thinking of E flat minor, not just this voicing. And then it goes to A flat minor. And another time I heard him also play the A minor add 9. So it's something like this if I don't totally screw this up. Oh, already screwed that up. Try that again. I don't know why, I can't remember that. For whatever reason, that's really tricky for me. So as I said, it's possible that Allan's not playing the lowest note. He could just be playing the upper structure. It would be something like F sharp major to B flat major, or maybe even play it up here. Oops. C major, I'm sorry, D flat major, A major, C major, and then instead of maybe just a D major, and then E flat minor, and then B major. So like I said, it's really tough to hear, but what I just showed you is the overall harmonic structure of what I hear. So at least playing that, you got all the parts covered. So after that, it goes into the drunken, sort of swirly section with the A as the bass. Repeats that again. And then repeats. That's the whole solo section. When that's over, we go to the outro or ending section, which is exactly like the beginning part, except for two little parts. There's one added chord and one sort of slight variation of one of the other chords. So let's do that now. Alright, so for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go through each individual chord, but I'm going to play through it and then tell you where the changes are. So, just like the beginning part. Now this is where we change. The reason why I think Allan plays it like this is because he's using his pinky to play B flat, and then slides to A. And then with his, I think his first finger or his third finger, I'm not exactly sure, he plays the G there. Of course, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that and just play it and use your pinky instead. But I try to make this as accurate as possible. After that, D flat major 7. You can also hear sometimes the major 7. Here's where the other change is, that 7 sharp 9 voicing that we did before for G flat rears its head again, and now it's played like this, which is really tough to play. It's surprisingly difficult. A, D, D sharp or E flat, and then a B on the top. So this is a B7 sharp 9. Really tricky. I mean, if you want, you could probably even bar like this, as long as you're not hitting the other strings. That's the easiest for me, but me trying to curl my first finger in there, my hands isn't big enough. So those are the only two differences, and then it repeats the same way as before. Oops. I'm sorry, whoops, screwed that up. And that's the end of the song. See, I don't mind screwing up physically playing. It bothers me more that I get a chord name wrong, especially it's something that's easy enough that I should be able to have figured out or picked up on. So, as I said, this song is really tricky even for me to play. Not like I'm some sort of guitar god or anything, but there aren't really too many Allan songs that I find physically difficult that I can't sort of weasel my way through without having large hands. This one, you kind of have to be kind of stuck with how it's played. Or, as I've usually said in the past, you can always modify these. This is just how Allan plays them. If you want to voice them differently, remove a note, have the bass do something so the guitar doesn't have to do it, that's perfectly fine as well. This is just, in my opinion, the most accurate way that Allan's playing it, within reason, because he's always adding some extra notes, and that's just the nature of jazz improv. So anyway, that song is finished. Hopefully next time, maybe in a couple weeks, I'll have a new one. I already have an idea what I'm going to do. It's a song that I personally like a lot, but it's going to be a long one, because there's a lot of different parts and a lot of modulating, and that might give you a hint of what song it's going to be next. So be prepared for that one. So it's probably going to be a 2 or 3 parter, I think. Anyway, thanks again for watching my videos, enjoying them, giving me comments, all that stuff. Once again, if there's any songs you want me to do, let me know, because I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. But if somebody brings up a really good suggestion, I'll just throw that on top of the list. So, thanks again, and see you guys next time.